It was November 2019, and I was in the Philippines leading a group of partners who were going to see our work up close. And of all the trips that I led, this was the very first time, and I have to say the only time, that a rescue operation was greenlit while I was in country. So you can imagine the group of 12 of us were really excited, but also really anxious about it. And of course, we couldn't go to the rescue site, so I asked my colleague to text us updates, which is the text exchange you just saw on that video. Now, if you couldn't quite see it, don't worry. If you registered for a giveaway, we'll make sure that it gets emailed to you after tonight. But good evening, everybody. My name is Jocelyn, and I work with Jenn at IJM. And don't worry, I won't go off script and sing you a song. I have to say, at IJM, I have experienced some of the most gut-wrenching pain, but also the greatest euphoria, sometimes within seconds of one another. We are regularly on the verge of tears from either despair or joy, which is why we have to follow our tears towards love. And it brings deep meaning to all of us when we show up to work at IJM. As we pursue this audacious vision of rescuing millions and protecting 500 million people by 2030, we come into contact with young children like Ruby. Ruby grew up in the mountains of the Philippines with 9 other siblings and grew up in a house that her dad built with his own hands. They were farmers and lived a simple life. And from early age, Ruby loved to learn, and she was good at it. But unfortunately, at age 12, her dad died of a stroke, and just a few months later, her mom was overtaken by sorrow and cancer. And Ruby was forced to drop out of school so she could take care of her mom. And her mom, she did eventually pass, and Ruby was left alone while her other siblings went back to the city with their families. So Ruby was drifting down a river of sorrow with no refuge in sight, all alone. And over the next 4 years, her siblings would periodically visit her, but then they became abusive and would physically beat her. And so Ruby refers to these years of her life as her blank space. And it was during this blank space of her life that a woman reached out to her on Facebook, curious about who she was and if she was interested in applying for a job in the city. Now, to give you an idea of how common this is, an FBI investigator once told me that traffickers will reach out about 900 times a day just on Facebook looking for vulnerable children. Children who are complaining about their lives, might have low self-esteem, and are probably longing to be discovered, pursued, and found. And in Ruby's case, death, poverty, and abuse left her desperate and susceptible. And so this woman on Facebook offered Ruby free transportation to the city, room and board, and agreed that Ruby could attend school if she worked at night. And so Ruby thought this was her godsend. And so at 16 years old, she left her country life without telling anyone in pursuit of building a better life for herself. But Ruby's dreams of a better life exploded when she entered into her new home. And the moment of realization was when she noticed a group of about 5 girls, a few of them were younger than her, wearing very little clothing and had lifeless eyes. Everything the trafficker had told her was a lie. This home was actually a place of business of one of the world's fastest growing crimes, the online sexual exploitation of children. And to be clear, we call it OSEC to shorten it. OSEC is the abuse of children that is both directed and viewed live over the internet all across the globe. Ruby blamed herself for falling into this trap, and she felt disgusted every time she had to perform something in front of the computer screen. And by age 16, Ruby had experienced the loss of both parents, physical abuse from her family, and now the claws of OSEC. And after several months trapped by her abusers, one night Ruby found herself on the bathroom floor, drowning in her tears, crying out to a God she wasn't sure existed, praying for a miracle. As she tells it, she fell asleep on the bathroom floor that night in a puddle of tears. But the next morning, the very next morning, Ruby was rescued by the National Bureau of Investigations and IJM. IJM's collaborative team of local police, as well as IJM investigators, lawyers, and social workers. Ruby's rescue, it was the beginning of the fight of her life. You see, Ruby's trial would take over 4 years, yet she persevered. And during those 4 years, she was part of IJM's aftercare program. Now, aftercare is just as important as rescue. However, there's no set formula to what your healing journey would look like. And so Ruby's journey, it was a fierce one. You see, we can easily think that rescue is happy and joyful, but in actuality, it's traumatic. It's chaotic, it's loud, and for children, it is very, very scary. And that's why rescue is just the first step. The moment of rescue is the very beginning of what is often a long journey towards healing. And it's why IJM is committed to a gold standard when it comes to aftercare. And Ruby spent several years walking this brave path of healing. So, what is Ruby up to now? Well, it is children like Ruby that inspire us to continue charging the forces of evil and abuse and exploitation of children. You see, Ruby is our hero. She's my hero. Despite loneliness, trauma, and grief, Ruby courageously testified against her trafficker in court. And when hiding and running was easier than ever, she ran toward it. And during the trial, her focus was not herself. It was the other girls who were with her and those whose future was at risk from the same abuse they experienced. Because of Ruby, her traffickers are now behind bars, no longer slithering in their community seeking children to exploit. You can clap for that. Amen. Their conviction shouts to their community that the exploitation of children is something that will not be tolerated. And the IJM team in the Philippines and all of our teams across the world work tirelessly so that not only children are rescued, but they are protected from being exploited in the first place. And I wish that you could meet Ruby because she has the kindest smile and the most purpose-filled eyes. She has finished her education. She is working full-time, but that's not all. She is one of our survivor leaders, using her voice to bring about change. For example, she testified in front of the UK Parliament, and her testimony led to an online safety bill passing. And get this, just recently, she was in a room filled with NFL athletes, and she showed them who the giant was in the room. Her vulnerability, her strength, her courage, and her invitation to make fighting OSEC part of their fight of their lives, and they said yes. So you may still be wondering, why keep sharing the horrific things you experience? Why not just forget about it and move on? She will tell you, as a healed, whole woman, what inspires her is knowing that there are thousands of children out there still trapped in the claws of OSEC, huddled on the floor, drowning in their tears, wondering, is their nightmare ever going to end? But tonight, we have the opportunity to destroy the monster of OSEC. We can make it possible for freedom to find those young sparrows who are still waiting to be set free. And our confession is that this work is hard. My colleagues on the field, they risk their lives every single day to do this work. And they'll do it day after day. And even for Jenn and I, we have our discouraging and really hard days. But it's 16-year-old girls like Ruby that inspire us and invite us to make the safety of children part of the fight of our life. And so we often say at IJM that we never give up and we never go away until all are free.